Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Good to Great. I'm your host, Ash, and this is the podcast for women wanting to take their health, business, and mindset from good to great. Today, I'm joined with Megan Darnell. Megan is a trauma-informed internal family systems therapist and host of the Self-Led Woman podcast, specializing in emotional eating, binge eating, and self-sabotage. She uses a blend of IFS therapy, somatic practices, nervous system work, and parts work. She helps women heal the deeper emotional and trauma-based patterns driving their relationship with food. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Ash. I'm excited for a conversation.
I'm so excited to dive into things with you today. To kind of get us started, I would love to dive into a bit of a backstory and just kind of speak about your own journey and what's led you to where you are today, how you got into what you do, and also just a bit more of an idea of what you do, because I know for a lot of people, even myself included, I was kind of like, wow, this is not something that I think is really well known or spoke about. So take the floor, give us all the info.
Sure. Okay, so I've had a long history and complex relationship with food and my body. And I can honestly say I probably started dieting at around the age of 8. And I grew up in the 90s, and if you weren't really thin, then you just weren't considered beautiful. And then I received those messages all around me from family, from other people. It was just like, if you weren't this, then you weren't where you needed to be as a woman, I guess. So I would start dieting and trying to lose weight. And this continued into my teenage years and then into my 20s. And I think I hit a point, I'd been in and out of therapy as well from like 21 onwards. Just I'd go see a therapist for maybe 3 months, and then we'd work through whatever I needed to work through. And then they'd say, okay, I think you're good now, like on your way, until something else would come up. And then I got to my late 20s, and I feel like I had what might start as an intention to be healthy. Like I'd started at the gym when I was about 25, and then I'd like lost some weight. I'd quit smoking and I'd put on quite a lot of weight after I quit smoking. And then I started going to the gym, and then I got to maybe, I'm going to say around the age of 28, and I was really getting quite obsessive with the dieting and the exercise, and it would always be this cycle of binge and restrict and binge and restrict. And I just got to a point where I was running one morning, and I was running to like burn off a binge and just cloaked in shame from it. And I just started crying on this run, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. And I realized I actually needed a little bit of help. So I went to therapy after that and tried to work through some stuff, but it was all very talk therapy and very cognitive. And I'd read it, my therapist gave me a book, and it was on bulimia, and I'd never considered I could have bulimia. Like I'd never thrown up in my life, but you can still also be purging with exercise, and that's exactly what I was doing. So I spent a bit of time with her, and after a few months she was like, well, I actually think we can't go any further until we work on the relationship with your mother. And I was like, that is not going to happen. And yeah, it was like she convinced me to bring my mum into therapy for a session, which was a very silly idea. So I stopped seeing that therapist, and then I continued on, and I tried to just stop, I guess, restricting after that, but I still struggled with food, and I struggled to have a healthy relationship with it, and it certainly wasn't neutral for me. And I continued on diets here and there, and then it would have been 2019, I was in another program which is considered for food addiction, which I don't believe exists anymore. But at the time, I thought that that was actually my problem. And after maybe a year of staying in that community, they started a course on IFS. And then they said, like, this wasn't an official course, it was just for you to learn how to work with your own eating patterns. And they said, just form a mastermind with some other people in the group and practice on each other. So we did. And I met with these other women for probably 2 years, and we would do IFS every week. And it changed my life. I started to heal trauma and relational trauma that I'd never ever been able to get through with therapy. Like therapy just gave me a really good understanding of what I was experiencing, but it didn't actually heal. And the IFS changed my life. And then slowly this relationship with food and my body started to loosen the grip. I also did some other healing, and I did a plant medicine journey for the first time in 2022, and that was a big piece of the pie in healing a lot of my trauma around my body. I actually went in with the intention to forgive my mum. I've had a long and challenging relationship with my mum, and I can tell the story. I feel like it's a little bit long, but it was one of the
Yeah.
most profound experiences of my life. I went into this session, and it took me through every single memory of any challenging experience I'd had with any other female. I'm talking even memories of my year 2 art teacher yelling at me. And I was just going through these memories and saying to each and every one of them, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And then it went the other way, and it showed me how I'd shown up and maybe judged other women or compared myself or been unkind or done things I wasn't proud of. And I was just sending, I guess, love and healing energy to these women, just saying, I'm so sorry. And I've sent you nothing but love and healing energy. And then it went to myself. And I just thought, like, I just said to myself, I'm so sorry for every mean thing I've done or said to my own body. And, I love you and I forgive you. And then it showed me like all these women all around the world, like from all different cultures. And they were all carrying like suitcases, and that was like symbolic of their pain. And I just said to them, like, I send you love and healing energy, and you don't have to carry your pain anymore. You can put it down. And it was really profound in the experience. But I went home that weekend, and on the Monday, I got up to go to the gym. And something I'd been doing every single day of my life since I was 14 is I'd get up, I'd get dressed, but I'd look at myself in the mirror and I'd pick myself apart. And I'd repeat things to myself that my mum used to say to me, such as, your stomach's disgusting, and things like that. And I just looked at my body and I just cried. And I just thought, my body has done nothing but love me and keep me alive. And I've just been so mean to it. And I just had so much gratitude and love for my body. And that was literally the end of the war with it. And then working with IFS, I decided this is what I want to do. It's changing my life. So I went and studied IFS. I then started working with women. And of course, your journey, it always kind of mirrors other people's. And I keep getting clients that are struggling with the emotional and binge eating. And so I just decided to niche into that. And it is like so much more. People think that this stuff is maybe they're binging or they're emotionally eating because they're flawed or there's something wrong with them, or they're comparing themselves to someone, where it's really easy to just follow a plan. But there's actually so much more deeper stuff underneath. Like there is people who have binge patterns always have relational trauma. Like they just do. And so we need to actually look deeper at what that's trying to tell you and how you can heal that, so you don't keep staying in those patterns and then beating yourself up for them, which then keeps you stuck in it. And it's
Yeah.
like when we can heal what's underneath, you no longer need food to regulate you or help you get through a hard day or be the thing that continues to cause you like frustration and pain and continues to keep you stuck in cycles of shame. And that's one of the reasons why I started my podcast as well, because women have so much shame around this stuff. Well, if
Mhm.
you're doing these things, like there's always a deeper reason.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Mm.
I struggled with binge eating for a very long time, and it wasn't until I had sort of a light bulb moment of, like, for me it was very much like an avoidance thing. It was like anytime
Mm.
I was avoiding something, I would turn to food. And I remember someone saying to me, and it was a massive light bulb moment of like, similar to what you just said a few sentences ago, of we use it to soothe ourselves. And it's like, what are you given when you're a kid? Like, you're given a bottle to soothe, you're given a lollipop to shut up when you're having a meltdown in the shopping center. And when someone made that comparison to me, it was like, huh, true. Like, that all makes sense now. And it's like when you start looking at it from that lens of, yeah, I guess like exactly what you're saying, versus the lens of what's wrong with me? Why can't I stop this? Like, I just need to look in or whatever it is. It's like, no, you don't. You need to understand what's causing this to happen in the first place. What do you think is the most sort of common, like, reason or, like, yeah, underlying sort of reason that women find they do binge eat that they're, like, completely sort of unaware of and they have no sort of sense of awareness around?
Generally, that point you made about, oh, you're given a lollipop so you won't cry, the women I work with, and I'm sure you probably find this as well, they are women that are so together. They're so high functioning. They're amazing at what they do. They've got everything else together, but it's this area of their life they might struggle with. And so then they feel, I guess, more shame around it because they're like, why can't I just get it together here? But they're always women, always, that grew up and they were very sensitive little girls. They were very perceptive, very intuitive. They knew exactly what was going on. They could read a room before anyone said a word.
Yeah.
And those girls are expressing that. And then they're told, you're too sensitive. Don't cry. Stop being so dramatic. And all they're doing is expressing very normal emotions. But they teach these little girls, your emotions are not okay. They're not okay. It's not okay for you to express needs. So that turns her into the very high functioning woman that goes, I'll handle everything and I'll keep it all inside. That creates so much tension within us because we're literally carrying everything and years of it as well. And when we're children, we don't have, like, we might not have the safe adults to say, hey, you're having a big emotion, like, let's sit with this. They just go, stop crying. What is the one thing that can regulate us? And it's the only thing as children we have access to. You can't, be 4 years old going, well, I'll just go and book in with a psychologist, or I'll just go and, do something else. Like, that's all you have is your parents, and they dictate your life, and they give you food, and you're like, okay, food soothes me. I'll have more food. And that becomes the thing that's dependable and reliable, and it regulates us. And when we also have that added layer of I can't ask for what I need because I'll be deemed too much, too sensitive, too dramatic, or whatever, we continue to hold it all on our own. And people don't realize that they're carrying so much. And particularly binging is something that really gives us a sense of relief, on top of if you also maybe restricting or maybe just in a deficit. For some people, being in a deficit, if you've got a lot of relational trauma and it's unresolved, your nervous system won't respond like another person that, say, did have emotional attunement or doesn't have much relational trauma. For me, as an example, when I used to be in deficit, even a small one, my body would flood with cortisol and my entire back, shoulders, and neck would tense up so tightly that it would cause me physical pain. So, of course, I'm going to eat. Like, that's the thing that's going to bring me relief. And we're humans, we're hardwired to move away from pain. And until I could resolve the emotional stuff underneath, I didn't have the capacity. And that's the thing, that people don't have the capacity to be able to, like, there's no room sometimes in between I'm stressed and the food. It's just, I need relief and I need it really quickly.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope I answered your question.
No, that did.
Yeah.
That kind of leads me into another question is what would you then, like, what do you work with people on specifically that say that that is like their, coping mechanism is like, I need that relief as per se. How does someone find relief when all they've previously known was through food? How do then they find that elsewhere?
My work connects you back to yourself, and that really is, I guess, the doorway into the healing. But connecting back to ourselves means we start to get more connected to our bodies. We can start to listen to them. We can start to feel the sensations in them. The therapy work I do, for someone that's got a lot of relational trauma, it can feel a bit unsafe to be in your body or to even feel those sensations. They can be a bit intense. It's like doing it in a really safe and contained way where it's not flooding their system or moving past their capacity and making them too dysregulated. But if we're talking, I do a type of therapy where we're with different parts of ourselves. So if we're talking to that, because that will make more sense to people, if you have struggled with this, you'll have different parts of you in conflict. So you'll have a part that maybe binges or emotionally eats, and then you always have a part that is critical of that. So you might binge because you needed some relief, but then the next day the part's like, I can't believe you did that. Why can't you just get it together? And whatever it wants to say, it can be really mean. And it then creates it triggers another part that kind of looks at things perfectionistically. So it's like, I have to be perfect. I'm going to not eat any of these foods. And it's like, then start to moralize things, label things as good and bad. And it creates so much more tension and pressure in your system that, you might be good on Monday, but then you get to Thursday and then something's taking over your whole body and driving you to the supermarket at 9 p.m. That's what we call rebel parts. And they're the parts that are like, fuck it, I'm just going to have a blowout. And then, like, you're there and you're doing it, but you can't seem to stop yourself. It's like, we look at all the parts in the system. Everyone's different. Everyone will have a part that's strongest. Often it's an inner critic, and we have to actually work with that part first, because if we don't, it will continue the cycle. But they sit in a loop, or even like a polarization, like a tug of war. So it's like, we have to sometimes work with two parts to create some relief there. And then in terms of what you're asking, it's like, one of the questions I often ask is like, when people are eating and they're not hungry, and it's okay to comfort eat sometimes, like, we're human, and food is comforting, but what is it that you're hungry for? And that's where we work with the connection to self, because it's like, you become more in tune with, well, I actually just need some connection right now. I'm going to go see if my friend can catch up, or I actually just need to have a break. I've been working so hard all day, and I actually just need to go and sit outside for 10 minutes, or I actually need to go do a workout, or whatever it is that you need that feels supportive. And when we have these little girls that grew up thinking my needs are not okay to have, we can just disconnect from those and our body. So then we don't actually know when we need what we need, but it's like knowing what you need in the moment. And if this is brand new to someone listening, the first thing that we do in my work, like, we get curious. So say you do need to binge, or you do binge, can you get curious before that? Like, if you notice yourself, you might be at work, but you're thinking to yourself, ooh, I'd love to just go, like, eat all this stuff after work. Like, stop and say, oh, okay, what is it that I'm needing? Like, am I tired? Do I need some connection? Do I actually just need to do nothing and have like a break from screen time? Do I need nature time, or whatever it is that you need? Like, these are all needs, and it's our job to meet them, and to learn to be okay with asking other people for what we need as well. This is another piece of that. Women can't ask for what they need,
Yeah.
but it's like being able to speak your needs. And I think I saw an episode, I was just checking out your podcast before, about boundary setting. That
Yeah.
ties in very much with people pleasing. And a lot of people pleasers struggle with food because they smile all day and say yes when they want to tell people to fuck off. And they're stuffing all their own feelings down. So then, of course, they're going to binge, because it's like, I need somewhere to put this. Like, this is too much in my body, rather than just saying, no, that doesn't work for me. And that's a practice as well. It's a skill.
Yeah.
But when we can connect back to ourselves and give ourselves the permission, it's like you become the person, like the secure connection that you maybe didn't get as a child. You become that person for yourself. You
Yeah.
become really attuned to what you need, what's happening in your body, what sensations are going on, and what that actually means. And you can decode that.
Yeah. I love that so much. So good. Um, oh, what was I about to say? I just had a question on the tip of my tongue, and now I've lost it. Yeah, like, what, for someone that is sort of like completely new to this, someone that hasn't necessarily even maybe heard of this before, and they're listening to this and thinking, fuck, this is me. Like, I struggle with this because obviously I work in the health and fitness industry. I see this, come across all the time. It's so common. And I think a lot of women have that shame and guilt, as you said earlier, and they don't even realize how common it is. And they think, oh, I'm the only person. Like, this is just me. There's something wrong with me. Like, I'm just going to have this forever. I think a lot of people have that attitude of like, this is just how I am. This is just who I am. Nothing's going to fix this. Nothing's going to help this. When someone comes with you and you're working with someone, what does that look like? Like, are you working with people for like a set period of time? Is it just like someone comes to you and then you're sort of working together and it's, you know, different person to person? And I guess when people are working with you, do you find there's like a set sort of time of working through things? Is it different, yeah, person to person? Because I know you use like quite a few different modalities depending on the client. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, how do you sort of find that, I guess, client journey, and how does that vary like person to person with sort of overcoming binge eating?
It depends on the person, depends where they are in their journey. Like I can get people that come to me and they're just simply wanting to lose weight and they've kind of been on that merry-go-round for a long time, and that's where they feel they're at in their journey, all the way through to people who've been diagnosed with eating disorders and they might be working with a dietitian or someone, but they actually need a bit of deeper emotional support. So that totally depends. So it is assessed on case by case basis. Normally, I have a 12-week one-on-one emotional eating therapy journey that I'll take people on, which is just one session a week. And then I also, sometimes this is only for certain people. And obviously, this is just if people really feel called to this and it's appropriate. I also work with medicine. So I do guided journeys with either psilocybin or MDMA and do therapy with them after they've done 12 weeks of work with me. That's not for everybody. That's just for people who feel like they need to go that extra layer. But then within the 12 weeks, there's certain parts that always existed within people's systems when they have struggles with food. And that's not just the struggles with food. So one part of them that always comes up is, say, the fear of being seen. But that can look different for every single client. Like for some people, it's they've received messages when they were younger that if I lose weight, I'll make other women uncomfortable. For other people, it's if I lose weight, I'm going to be receiving unwanted attention from men. And that didn't feel safe for them. So it just depends on where they are in their journey. But generally, the 12 weeks is what we start with if they're wanting to really work through all the emotional eating or the binge eating stuff, or even the cycle of like binge and restrict or those kinds of things.
Yeah, love that. That's honestly, it's like 12 weeks. If you can, you know, start with that and commit that to literally change your life, like how amazing. Like, that's literally nothing. And I know like people have dealt with, you know, these struggles for years and years. So to think that you could see like such a significant change in relatively like a short amount of time is insane. I want to jump back to something you just mentioned previously with holding on to weight. I know we briefly spoke about this earlier in a previous conversation. Let's talk about that, because I find this really interesting and I think it's, again, one of those things that's not really spoken about. People don't necessarily have the awareness about or know about. So let's dive into that. I want to know sort of, yeah, what your thoughts are on that, how often you sort of like see that come up. Is it something people are aware of, something that people deny even? Like, is that, fill us in, I want to know it all.
Sure. So there's a few, I guess, angles we can look at this from. So there are parts, because we work with parts of your psyche, there are parts that sometimes will hold on to weight. And this may mean that you're doing everything, quote unquote, correctly and you wanted to lose weight. But your body is literally holding on to this weight and it will not let go. Now, obviously, this will create certain hormonal changes. So like you could have a rise in cortisol. Cortisol is going to hold on to anything it possibly can. But aside from that, what we've found, and there's been research on, and there's people who their bodies hold weight, and there's sometimes not a logical explanation. Generally, their boundaries have been crossed way too many times. And their bodies will literally hold on to weight, often around the midsection, to protect their organs. And when we talk to these parts in therapy and we ask them, like, well, why are you doing this? And they're like, well, I need to protect this person. And it could be literal boundaries being crossed, and this person could have been hurt, or it can actually be like people pleasing, where you're constantly saying yes when your body is saying no, but that creates stress. It creates this inner tension as well between two parts of yourself. So your body will just do that as an adaptation, which is so clever. There's also other reasons why the body might hold weight. One of them can be, and this can be like what I explained, it can also be that you've got a part that keeps eating, but that part believes it needs to hold the weight so you'll be safe. If you look at the research, there's loads of women who are holding weight and they've experienced some sort of sexual abuse. So the body thinks, I'll be safe, I'll be invisible if I hold on to this weight. So it will keep you either holding the weight or even just eating to keep the weight on. There's also that like fear of being seen, of having, other women disapprove of you losing weight. So again, that part will keep eating and keep the weight on to protect you from that happening. And this might not seem like such a big deal, but to our nervous systems it is. And if you've had experiences of, you know, being rejected by a group or being, that wound will stay with you. And it might not have anything to do with your body, but we maybe learn these things through observation of other people's experiences as well. Then there's also women who just had experiences of being sexualized way too early, had older men looking at them in a way that was just inappropriate when they were just way too young to process it. And often, like, we start hitting puberty and start getting curves at like 12, 13. Like, emotionally, we don't have the tools and the capability to process that. And it's just creepy and weird, but it happens and it comes up in sessions with my clients all the time. Then there's other women who, the other side of the weight, like when they're actually restricting and staying smaller for that exact same reason. So what their brains learned was when they were starting to get this inappropriate attention from men quite young, they interpret that as, well, I didn't get attention when I was like smaller and, before I had curves. So I'm going to restrict and stay small because my body was neutral to the world then, and now it's not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I love that angle. I feel like I haven't really heard that before, which is, yeah, you kind of sometimes hear it more so from the holding on, but
Mhm.
from the opposite extreme of like, oh, well, when I was smaller, when I was a child and I didn't have the figure, no one looked at me then, so I'll try and keep that. I really, yeah, that's eye opening.
Yeah, and the body, like, it's so intelligent. It's constantly making adaptations just to keep us safe. Even though that might not be correct right now, it would have been once upon a time. And that's what, when I speak to relational trauma, it's these trauma, often people consider it as these huge catastrophic moments, but they're not. They're often tiny little ruptures that happened or tiny little events that make us feel unsafe. So then this part develops and goes, never again. I'm never going to experience that again. I'm never going to feel it again. So they'll just do their job until we work with them, until they're updated. And they're like, oh, I don't need to do it anymore. You're an adult. You can take care of yourself. You don't need to do these things. And it's often one of the questions we ask in a therapy session is when we work with a part, how old do you think this person is? And they'll say something like 4 or 10, and they have no idea that you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and completely capable of standing up for yourself, speaking your truth, keeping yourself safe. And it really does change their entire perception. They kind of step back. Oh, I don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah, I feel that the work that you're doing is not only helping women overcome, their binge or their restrictive eating cycles, but also how do you find that women then see that display in other areas of their life? Because obviously, if they're starting to learn how to set those boundaries, stop people pleasing, stand up for themselves, voice their opinions, sort of, I guess, what other transformations also come from that? Because I can imagine that only just bleeds into every other aspect literally of their life, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, this is really what's happening is they're connected to themselves. They're connected to their bodies. They can feel into their sensations. We've often worked with the people pleasing parts or the parts that are afraid to speak up and updated them. You don't need to do this job anymore. So they can start to ask for what they want. And often when we have the women that I can't ask for what I need, and I need to be a people pleaser. They don't ask for things in their relationships, for example. But when you actually work with these parts and know you can start to ask for them, because so many women, they go through life being people pleasers and then they're just so full of resentment and anger. And they're like, oh, I just resent them so much. And I'm like, okay, well, have you actually asked for what you want, or have you spoken about this? No, I haven't. And they might say things like, oh, they should just know. And I'm like, no, like you actually have to speak for that. And if we haven't worked with the parts, and everyone will relate to this if they have people pleasing parts, it's like they finally decide to set a boundary, and then it feels like you're being chased by a bear for the next 6 hours. And you're thinking, maybe I shouldn't have been so harsh. Maybe I should send them a text message. Oh God, this is really bad. And like you backpedal. But it's like until you can feel safe enough in your body to speak your truth and just own that my podcast is called The Self-Led Woman, and it really is being self-led. And it's in IFS we have different parts, but at the center of that sits the self, and the self is the naturally confident, calm, compassionate version of you that knows the answer, that's so connected to your intuition. It's not affected by trauma, but all the protective parts of us that run all these scripts and do all these roles, they're the ones sometimes running the show. And when we can return back to self, we are connected to ourselves. We can speak our truth. We can say yes to things that feel like a full fuck yes, and no to things that don't. And be okay with that. And also be okay with other people being disappointed because you said no, because
Yeah.
you're living so in alignment. And then I see people, they do work on their eating, and then they're like, I actually hate my job. I've decided I want to do, I don't know, kinesiology, and I'm going to go study that. And they understand themselves so much more deeply. Their relationships improve. They're advocating for themselves. It's just a ripple effect out to every area of their life.
Yes, I love that so much. I feel like it's, yeah, literally life changing. It's one of those things where you just, I think once you open that can of worms, you're like, wait a second, why is this not taught in school? Why am I learning the, I don't know, cos, san, and t, whatever those things are? Can't even tell you what it was. I always, yeah, I feel like when I learn these things, I'm just like, okay, and why is this not common knowledge? Like, what is
Hmm.
going on? One question I always ask all my guests on here is, what is one sort of piece of advice or thing that you would say that has either taken you, or I guess even in your line of work, like perhaps with your clients, or you can go answer from both angles if you like, from good to great?
Such a good question. I think the thing that takes you from good to great is the connection back to self. But if I speak to my own work, because anyone can start doing this today, anytime you have something going on, and it might be a part that wants to binge eat or emotionally eat or restrict or punish yourself or anything. It can be even just like self-criticism, because some people just hear the self-criticism and they believe it.
Yeah.
But just stop and know that that is just a part of you. It's not all of you. And one thing I like to do, because you can do this anytime, any place, anywhere, it's not like you have to sit down and do a 20-minute meditation. But if you notice anything, just get curious. Like, even if it's the criticism, like, oh, that's a part of me. And then what I like to do, because you can be doing this mid conversation at work, whenever I place a hand on my heart, and I just use my hand to communicate to that part, hey, I see you. You're not alone. Because these parts work so hard and create so much stress and tension in our system sometimes, because they think that they're all alone and they're doing it all on their own. So it's just like that touch will actually help to regulate you. You could do that even when you're like feeling stressed, that hand on the body, but just like saying to that part in your mind, like, hey, I see you. You don't even have to say that. Use your hand to communicate to that part. I see you. You're not alone. You can come back to it later and ask it questions like, I've what are you afraid of? And just wait and listen to see what comes up. But just know that these parts, they're just a part of you. They are just trying to help, even though that might feel really counterintuitive, but they all have good intentions. And just that's, I guess, a doorway to start to connect you back to yourself and just start to notice what's there. And parts don't have to speak. Some people have visuals, some people have it's the voice, some people just have sensations in their body. So if it's pain or discomfort, like that's a part of you as well. Just like use your hand to communicate to that part, like, hey, I see you, you're not alone. And I think that taking yourself from good to great, if you are connecting back to yourself and doing that, that's a skill as well. Doing that as a daily practice, that is going to lead you to where you need to go in life. That is going to lead you to the things that bring you joy, the things that light you up, the things that feel like a full fuck yes, the things that feel like they're in alignment. And you could take someone else's template of like health or business or whatever it is. But if that's not a full fuck yes for you, it's not sustainable. I always say, like, if you something gives you joy, pull that thread. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it is, but like that's going to lead you down the path that was always meant for you.
I love that. If something gives you joy, pull that thread.
Mm.
That's going straight in my little quotes notes. That is so good. I love that whole angle of like, yeah, connect to yourself and just come back to you. Like you are your own home and having that, like even the physical touch. Like that's a really, yeah, good answer. It's different to what anyone else has sort of said and it's very like tangible. I love that. Amazing. Any last words, anything you want to leave people with? Any last words of wisdom?
Just that if you're in these struggles, there's nothing wrong with you. It's your very intelligent system, your very intelligent body that is just asking for your attention. Like it is just asking you to look what's underneath. And if you are in that shame cycle, like I encourage you to go listen to my podcast as well, because I speak to all of the different angles of this, and I have some amazing guests on that have been working in this field for 30 or more years. Like there's such a different way to look at this where you can look at this as your body is actually trying to give you some kind of wisdom and you just need to listen.
Yeah, 100%. I love this. I love this whole conversation. I love what you're doing. I will have your podcast and your Instagram both linked in the show notes below. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with everyone what you do, sort of how you do it, and I guess opening hopefully some more awareness around binge eating and emotional eating, all of that in general, because I think it's not spoken about enough. So like normalizing those conversations is something that I think is really important. And yeah, I guess that is it. Thanks everyone for listening to this episode. Everything you need to know will be in the show notes below, and I will see you in my next episode.
Thanks so much, Ash.
You're so welcome.